I want to start with a question that I hear all the time from clients, from students, from myself. Are we actually becoming more narcissistic as a society? Or does it just feel this way right now because there's so much online information about narcissism all the time? So many women started seeing men with narcissistic features. Why we start noticing it in parents? The answers we hear are usually like people are selfish, everyone is a narcissist now, social media ruined us. Well, of course, that kind of answer doesn't really help. This is not a shallow question. This is developmental, cultural, and psychological question. Today, I want to slow it down and look at it without shaming or moralizing. Before I go further, I want to be clear about the lens I'm using. Much of what I am talking about today, I took from the book Treating Pathological Narcissism with Transference-Focused Psychotherapy, written by Diana Diamond, Frank Yeomans, Barry Stern, and Otto Kernberg. I'm not quoting it word for word. I'm trying to paraphrase and translate its ideas into everyday language, because I think that it's an amazing book, and I think that the theory and this therapy is wonderful. I don't want to accuse anyone of narcissism, and TFP gives us a way to talk about narcissism as a structure and as a response to developmental and cultural conditions. So the question isn't, are there more narcissists and more selfish people? The question is, are we living in conditions that encourage narcissistic ways of regulating the self? And if so, what does that do to us over time? What narcissism means clinically? In TFP, transference-focused psychotherapy, narcissism is not defined as like loving yourself too much. It is defined as a particular internal organization, which involves a very idealized image of the self, difficulty holding complex images of others, and a self-esteem that oscillates from I'm the best to I'm the worst. From this perspective, narcissism is not about vanity at all. It's about emotion regulation. It develops when a person needs a strong, sometimes rigid self-image because they need to manage their emotional overwhelm or shame. And this is why narcissistic functioning often shows up as this oscillation between defensiveness, self-promotion, confidence collapse. Your self-esteem is like boom, boom, like a pendulum. So you can see versions of this publicly when a celebrity or public figure appears invincible one moment and deeply wounded by criticism the next moment. And it's important to say that narcissism exists on a continuum. Most people that we call narcissists are not narcissistic in a pathological sense. They just use narcissistic traits to cope. What the research shows. Studies using the Narcissistic Personality Inventory show increases since 80s in traits like entitlement, perceived specialness, expectations of exceptional outcomes, and self-esteem that is not always realistic. One well-known community study found that people in their 20s had significantly higher rates of NPD diagnosis, narcissistic personality disorder, than people over 65. So that doesn't mean, of course, that young people are worse. It means that they grew up in a very different psychological environment. When I watch younger influencers or celebrities struggle publicly with criticism, sometimes lashing out, I see trait-level narcissism under constant exposure. So narcissism is a cultural adaptation, and it didn't start with social media. In the late 70s, Christopher Lush described what he called a culture of narcissism. Not because people were selfish, but because shared meaning got weaker. And identity, your identity, became something that you have to construct, defend, and market. Everyone can have their own YouTube channel now, or Instagram account. People started investing heavily in images, feel easily humiliated, and being over-dependent to feedback. We're living in a culture that asks people to be real and perform at the same time. It is very difficult. Social media serves as an amplifier. It did not invent narcissism, but it absolutely rewards narcissistic regulation. Because if you're visible, it means you're safe and your views show how worthy you are. When someone like Elon Musk moves rapidly between grand vision, humor, provocation, and exposure, what we're seeing is not just personality. We're seeing how platforms amplify impulsivity, self-referencing, externalized self-regulation. And this isn't limited to famous people. It's the environment many people are growing up in. We see this pattern in politics. For example, Boris Johnson often framed legal or institutional limits not as necessary constraints, but as unfair personal attacks. So clinically, this reflects a common narcissistic difficulty. It's hard to tolerate limits without experiencing them as humiliation. And this illustration shows how narcissistic defenses emerge when it's hard to integrate accountability and dependency and shame. And the internal tension looks like I need to be exceptional, and I also need rules, I need others, and I need containment. So when those two can't coexist in one person starts using narcissistic defenses more and more. Empathy did not disappear, and it's not that everyone has NPD. What we're seeing is, yes, more fragile self-esteem, more shame sensitivity, more oscillation between confidence and collapse. At the same time, we also have more psychological language, more tools for reflection than ever before. We also have this divide between narcissists and empaths. We'll talk about it in a separate video because I think it's two sides of one coin. I think we all need to remember that narcissism is not a flaw. There is healthy narcissism, there is unhealthy narcissistic coping, but it's a strategy for survival in this culture we're living in today. We are becoming more narcissistic in traits and in how culture reinforces narcissism. From a transference-focused perspective, narcissism is an attempt to stay whole in a world that constantly fragments your identity and worth. And when we understand that, we can respond with structure, limits, and curiosity instead of attacks and labels. And that's where psychological work begins. Have you noticed narcissistic features in yourself? How did you see them? What helped you notice them? And what do you do with them?